Chapter 7. Staging. Kelly wiped tears of exhaustion from her eyes as she leaned against a wall across from a virtual window, its view framing Ursan and Chimera docked in Delphi Station. Repair drones danced around the damaged frigate and corvette, reshaping their hulls with traction beams, rapidly flickering various colors as hundreds of minute adjustments pushed and pulled the ship's armor back into place. It had been a sleepless and silent 8-hour trip to the starport with Chimera in tow, and, to add insult to injury, an emergency military trial had been called. Conglomerate martial law required all participants of friendly fire incidents to be present and accountable as quickly as possible to ensure the highest memory integrity. The trial's urgency was heightened further given Commander Vogel's disobedience of a direct order. The door to her left opened, leading into a dark, round room, which seemed to pull Kelly in like a black hole. She walked into the center in absolute quiet and studied her surroundings. 6 evenly spaced doors stood along the walls. A spotlight cast down over her, blinding her from seeing anything but the circular pad on which she stood. Visually, the chamber married up with its function, quarantining thoughts in separate waiting areas so that each person could give an account without the possibility of external influence. She had always suspected the military tribunal process was designed to make people crack under pressure, which now seemed an accurate assessment. Dry-mouthed and shaking slightly, Harper delivered the summative vocal deliberation she had rehearsed, which would not be allowed to exceed 1 minute. "We just landed in the this parsec, and I was running a simulation. I requested Adam to perform when it froze the scenario. Lieutenant Saram contacted me informing me of a situation, that Chimera was destroying navigation beacons and not responding to hail. He explained further that their biosynaptic readings were—" She stumbled, realizing that she'd already used a third of her time, then added, "strange. They look like readings of a person with dissociative identity disorder. He checked our readings as well and found that we were suffering the same side effects. Chimera then closed distance to us and opened fire, but Captain Casey ordered us not to return fire. Instead, we engaged in evasive maneuvers as we attempted to understand what was happening. I asked Adam to give me some information that it was required to divulge under the conditions, and it refused, so—" She paused again, realizing she only had 9 seconds left. "You can see all of this in my ONI archive. I just want to say, I believe Commander Vogel only fired on Chimera as a result of the synaptic condition we were all suffering from." "Your time has expired," came Adam's voice. "I have retrieved your ONI memory block for the previous 10 hours. You may exit now. Thank you, Ensign Harper." Sighing unsteadily, Kelly relaxed her shoulders and turned toward the door through which she entered. As soon as she passed through to the hall and the door shut, Adam informed everyone that it had reached a decision. Commander Vogel was invited into the trial chamber, and Kelly switched on a virtual window to watch the decision being announced. Realizing she'd been holding her breath, Kelly inhaled as she observed the first officer sheepishly enter the chamber. He waited in the center, head hung in shame. "Commander Vogel of Ursan," Adam spoke, almost crooning like a mother calming her child. "I have found you not guilty of the charge of insubordination." Clay's posture immediately lifted as though his pride had never been tarnished. "You cannot be found responsible for your actions while under the influence of an unknown psychological phenomenon. Thank you for your service. You may exit." Vogel walked out of the chamber with military rigidity. Then another door opened. "Captain Martin of Chimera," Adams spoke softly. Martin, a gray-haired, rotund man of pale complexion, entered the chamber's center and stood with a confident air. "You are found not guilty of your orders and actions while under the influence of the synaptic anomaly. However," Adam added, to which the captain's head jerked, "you are found guilty of ignoring a distress call from Freya B prior to entering the Delphi system." "Freya B? What is Adam talking about?" Kelly wondered. She pulled up a file on the Freya system. It was within 1 Star Relay's launch, or HOP, from Delphi. TerraCorps, the ground force military branch, oversaw an outpost on the second planet from Freya. "You suspected that Freya B's radio heartbeat carried an encrypted subchannel distress code, a textbook indication of duress, but you declined to investigate. As a result, henceforth you are demoted to commander and will be reassigned immediately. You are to be transferred via the next transport to the frontier. Your ship assignment is pending. Dismissed." Captain Martin gritted his teeth. "Adam, if I may appeal?" No. The disgraced captain turned on a heel and strode out of the chamber like an indignant child. The virtual window's view cut back to the Urson and Chimera in port. Kelly closed her eyes for a moment as she leaned against the wall. She could almost drift asleep right here. "Ensign Harper," Adam said, "you may exit the tribunal. Your captain is paging all hands." Urson's bridge was impressively complex and elegant in design. Oval-shaped, it spanned 35 feet in length and 20 feet in width with a dome ceiling. 2 opposing doors led to the ring, but the ceiling and walls comprised a seamless virtual window that the captain could split into separate screens or display an unbroken panorama of space. His flight chair was centered in the room to allow him a 360-degree view. On one side of the oblong chamber lay the helmsman's flight chair and an old-fashioned dashboard of buttons, input devices, and screens. An android sat at the console, inanimate. On the other side of the bridge was a conference table with 6 seats. Kelly felt a judgmental, hypersensitive mood pervade the comnet and looked toward her crewmates seated at the table. Captain Casey stood with one arm leaning on the back of a chair at the head of the table. Vogel sat off to the side, looking away with a ponderous expression. Lyra Schilling sat in one of the seats, her burly arms relaxed on the table. Melinda Pine sat at the chair opposite the captain, but her chair was turned at a slant towards the first officer. Kelly wondered if Pine was consoling the commander privately, as a communication officer might. Saram just entered the room and approached the table. Captain Casey took a deep, troubled breath. "I realize we're all short on rest. I couldn't get a wink after the Chimera incident, but I just received news that our 2 injured crew will make full recoveries quickly," he said in an unbecoming, gravelly timbre, then paused to wet his lips. "Though we still don't know what caused the synaptic condition. I'm sure we will understand in time. Could have been intense cosmic rays, maybe even a UniTerra virus in the comnet. Frankly, it doesn't matter now. It's out of our hands, and Adam will launch its own investigation. I know it must have been a jarring experience for everyone, but remember that none of us can be blamed for our actions, or inaction." Captain Casey's thoughts of self-incrimination bled through, and though he was humble, his attempt to put the crew at ease did little to assuage their tension. Everyone seemed to be holding emergency breath in their lungs, as though even air could not be taken for granted. Realizing her own level of discomfort, Kelly sighed, then the captain prompted her with a slight gesture. "I think—" "What the hell, Commander?" Lyra asked. She shot daggers at Vogel. It was as though Kelly had not even spoken. "Synaptic anomaly or not, why—" "That's enough," Captain Casey said. "The past is behind us. Adam was merciful today, and let's just be thankful we all survived. Look, we all need time to process things. Unfortunately, we won't have much time before our next assignment." The crew locked eyes with the captain. "We have new orders," Casey cleared his throat. "We're going to the Freya system to request a landing and repairs from Freya B, the second planet in the system. It was the base that issued a secret distress call to Chimera. The commanding officer of the base, TerraCorps Major Jessica Verey, will have to approve our landing. Under normal conditions, approval is assumed, but if the base is compromised, she may come up with some reason to turn us away. That's why we need an urgent reason to request it. That's why repairs have ceased on Urson, to make it look like we were attacked. If Major Verey approves our landing for repairs, which she is obligated to do, we can then gather more information. Adam's working theory at the moment is that the outpost is being occupied by the GPM. Questions?" "GPM, sir?" Kelly asked. Lieutenant Commander Pine interjected. "You know the phrase, 'jump by the faceless'? Of course, every cadet says that about surprise questions on academy exams. It was coined by Byron Velt, founder of the Galactic Peace Movement. The Faceless are a theoretical third faction he predicted would emerge from the Civil War. Most people think the GPM are actually that faction, hiding in the open." "Byron Velt," Andrew said, quietly as if speaking the very name were an offense, "is a conglomerate expatriate. You might say he was exiled, except for the fact that he exiled himself. He rebelled against the conglomerate, about 3 years ago. Said the Admiralty is corrupt and Adam is a sham. Didn't really have a following for a while, understandably. Over time, he started to build a bit of a cult under the banner of pure technocracy. I guess you could say on the political spectrum, if UniTerra is traditional on the right and the Conglomerate is for progressive leadership on the left, Velt and the GPM are in the middle. So what would the GPM have to gain from occupying Freya B? Kelly asked. It's a world rich in Kagasite, but other than that, your guess is as good as mine, Captain Casey said. Kelly nodded. So, Vogel said, suggestions for how we are going to investigate the compound if they won't let us leave the ship? Adam has a plan, the captain said. I happen to think it's a good one. We claim that one of our crew got seriously injured in the accident, who will be preserved in a stasis pod but will require better medical attention than we can provide on the ship. We request their medical facility help to treat the wounded crew member, so they're obligated to take him or her on. We plant a wide-range multi-sensor in the stasis pod, so as it moves through their facility, we collect information ranging from synaptic, visual, audio, anything we can get a read on. And who will be in the pod? Andrew asked. It's me, isn't it? Vogel muttered. Captain Casey nodded. Makes sense. I have the most ground combat experience. What good is that when you're in suspended animation? Kelly asked. She glanced around at crewmates, confused for a moment before she picked up on their thoughts. Embarrassed, she felt her face flush with heat. The stasis pod would be rigged to provide a false status for Vogel's bio-readings, while he would be very alive and armed inside. We depart in 10 minutes. I will send the plan to you all shortly, the captain said. After we hit LZ, your orders are to catch a nap. We'll be no good if we go into this without our full wits. Adam will execute the staged accident and alert us when we approach Freya B. To your departure stations, dismissed. Everyone headed for the exit except Andrew. Kelly could feel a tug of thought coming from him, then glanced in his direction, but his eyes darted away.